My name is Lisa Miele, and I am the director of the Low Vision Resource Center and Owl Radio. And we want to welcome you today to the online recorded version of the 23rd Annual Low Vision Expo. The Low Vision Resource Center has been putting on the expo for the last 23 years, and this was our very first online version of it, thanks to the San Antonio Lighthouse for the Blind. I want to introduce to you Shirley Crandall from the San Antonio Lighthouse and have her tell you more about their programming.
Thanks, Lisa. San Antonio Lighthouse for the Blind and Visually Impaired's Rehabilitation Department is a nonprofit providing programs for all ages, such as independent living skills, technology training, job placement, and much more. To learn about all of our free services, visit salighthouse.org or call 210-531-1547.
We hope that you enjoy the programs that we're putting on the YouTube channels of both of our organizations, as well as our podcast page. For those of you not familiar with Owl Radio, we provide 24/7 access to the written word for those who cannot read on their own due to print impairment or visual impairment. If you would like to learn more about it, please visit www.owlradio.org or feel free to call us at 210-829-4223. Enjoy the incredible programs that took place at the 23rd Annual Expo, and we look forward to seeing you next year.
We're just going to get started right away. We're just going to get started. Our first animal is one that most people really misunderstand, and when you see it, you're going to be amazed. Though this little animal that I'm holding is an opossum, the North American opossum, or people call them possums, and that's fine too. Possums are more from like Australia, but the opossum is a North American marsupial, which means they are in the kangaroo family. She is gray in color. She's got gray and white hair and color. They've got really big ears. They look a lot like a giant rat. And that's why they're so misunderstood, because they do look like rodents. And that's the only thing, is that they're not rodents. They are actually in the marsupial family. They have the kangaroo family there. They have a very long hairless tail. It's probably about it looks a lot like, we've had some little kids describe it as it's kind of like a snake, kind of a reptile looking tail. It's hairless. It doesn't have hair on it, so that it allows them to climb through the trees a lot easier. They have a very long snout and very long whiskers. And the reason why is because opossums don't see very well at all. They are a nocturnal animal. So during the day, these guys are sound asleep. They like to find little nooks and crannies and sleep it off during the day. But at night, when it's time to look for their food, they rely mostly on their hearing, their sense of smell, and their whiskers. And the reason why is because they're looking for close animals or insects. They're looking for insects in the ground, and they use those whiskers to help them find bugs. Right now, I'm actually feeding her some mealworms, which is one of her favorite treats. She loves insects. She loves crickets, mealworms, stuff like that. She also likes grapes too. That's one of her favorite foods there. And as I mentioned, they're part of the marsupial family, which means that she has a pouch. She was actually raised in a pouch. We got Poppy from a rescue organization in Waco, Texas. She was found on the side of the road as a baby. We don't know what happened to her mom. Being on the side of the road, there's probably likely that maybe a vehicle was involved, but they could not find her mom anywhere. So they had to rescue her because she still needed to be nursed. And so after nursing her for a few months, they discovered that she had an eye infection, a very severe eye infection that had to be treated with antibiotics on a daily basis. So she got so used to being around people that when they went to release her, they were afraid that she was not going to be, she was just going to go back to people's houses looking for food, looking for care. So Texas Parks and Wildlife just decided that she would not be a good animal to be released because, it could get her into a little bit of trouble, going into people's backyards looking for food. And so that's why we have her. But she's 3.5 years old now. Opossums have more teeth in their mouth than any other North American mammal. They have 50 teeth in their mouth. That's a lot of teeth. So if you've ever encountered these possums, the first thing they do is they hiss, they open their mouth, and they show off their teeth. And for good reason, and they can bite. But the thing about opossums, what makes them so misunderstood is that, first of all, they don't carry diseases. They don't carry rabies. So a lot of people think it's an animal that might carry rabies, but they are actually immune to rabies. So if a rabid animal, a strayed or a coyote, anything with rabies were to bite an opossum, she couldn't get the rabies. And the reason why is because their body temperature is lower than any other mammal. Their body temperature is about 92 degrees, between 92 and 94 degrees, which is just a little too cold for rabies virus to survive. The other interesting thing is that if a rattlesnake were to bite an opossum, they are immune to venom. So they don't get affected by the venom. So what an incredible animal to be able to withstand that, you know, and the reason why they also immune to venom is because their bodies are designed to play dead. Have you all heard about playing possum? Well, when they play dead, they have another chemical reaction that protects them from the venom, which is what allows them to survive it. And when they play dead, they actually, they just fall asleep and their body shuts down for a little bit. Their heart rate really slows down. Their body temperature gets really low. And they also begin to smell like a dead animal, which is what protects them from other animals. They can eat just about anything. They eat reptiles, they eat bugs, they eat, of course, if you heard, they probably get into trash cans. They can also, I mean, they eat dead animals too. So it's like a vulture in the sense that they clean up, you know, from carcasses and dead animals. So they do also a big part. Their favorite food of all time are ticks. They love to eat ticks. One opossum can eat 5,000 ticks in 1 year. So these animals are very beneficial. But unfortunately, during the springtime, you know, that's when a lot of the babies are found because either the moms were carrying them and they got hurt. But if you do come across these guys, you know, we always tell people to go to the rescue rehab facilities and drop them off because at a very young age, opossums can actually they are weaned at a very young age, and so that's what makes them easier to survive there. And she's made quite a mess on this towel over here. I've got food all over this towel, grapes and nuts all over this towel there. But that's why these animals are so misunderstood. But they do have a pouch. You know, when they're born, they're about the size of a jelly bean, and they're born hairless. And then once they're about 2 to 3 months old, they get on mom's back and she carries them around. And then after about 4 months, they are on their own. They are basically looking for food on their own. So.
Well, you answered part of a question in the chat, which would be that if you do encounter them, to call a wildlife rescue. And the other part of the question was, do they require any human intervention, shelter, or food?
No, but what happens a lot of times during the winter months, opossums, they don't come out as much during the winter, as much as people think. They don't like the cold as much. So the other thing is that sometimes if you have one that's living under your porch or in a garage or something like that, if they get displaced, just be mindful that, you know, they're going to be going out into a different environment. So if there's a way to you know, either allow them to stay in a place that's safe, that you can actually keep them in a safe place without interacting with your pets, without interacting with your family members. A lot of times it's best just to leave them alone. And in the springtime, then they'll emerge more and then they can kind of, you know, you can either send them off, but you can also humanely trap them and then maybe take them to an area that has a lot of dense, you know, brush and dense woods and stuff like that, because then they'll do fine. But that's the only thing, though, is that that's probably my only recommendation with that is if you do come across one, it's best just to kind of, let them do their thing.
Yes. Yeah. And that's really kind of across the board with most animals, isn't it? It's just let them alone and do their thing. They don't want to come after you for any reason, unless they feel like you're threatening their young or, stepping right on them, something like that. Most of the time, just let them be and let them do their thing. We have one more question. Does Poppy like being petted by you?
Yes, she actually has fallen asleep in the nook of my arm. So I'll hold her on my forearm, and sometimes I'll just kind of rub her back and keep rubbing her back until she kind of tucks her nose underneath my arm, and she will fall asleep. And so, that tells me that she kind of likes that soothing touch, that we give her. So,
Aw, I want to come and pet Poppy till she falls asleep.
she is and they're very soft too. Their hair is very soft, but it's not as thick as you think. It's very thin. The hair is thin, so that's why during the winter they like to stay kind of tucked away and hidden away. So, all right, you all ready for the next one? Here we go.
Yes.
The next one is a little smaller and a little more prickly. Look at this, everybody. I know I'm not holding a sea urchin. This is actually an African pygmy hedgehog. There's his little face. If I can show his face in the camera there. He is covered with quills all over his body. He looks like a little roly-poly covered with quills. Their quills are modified hair, and it is what protects them from predators. This one's name is Bruce. He is 7 months old, and right now you can kind of hear the sounds. You'll hear that? So he does that when we first pick him up. He was asleep. I forgot to mention, Poppy is nocturnal. I may have mentioned that, but she's nocturnal. This next animal, Bruce here, he's nocturnal. And so during the day when they're asleep, they are tucked away, they are sleeping comfortably. And of course, when we pick them up to present them, that first thing they do is, they just kind of complain a little bit for a second, but then he'll start opening up his face a little bit. He's got his little nose is always moving. He's got a white face with white hair, and his quills are black, or they're kind of a cinnamon colored quills. And underneath the quills, there's actually soft hair. It's white hair. They've got these tiny little feet, tiny little legs. And hedgehogs also don't see very well. They rely mostly on their sense of smell. They rely on their ears because they have big ears. They almost look like elephant ears on a hedgehog. They've got pretty good sized ears compared to the size of their face. And so at night, when these guys wake up, they're smelling for insects as well. Their nose is always twitching. It's always working. And then they can actually smell bugs buried underground up to about 6 inches. There's that little face. You can kind of see that little face there. So his the nose is kind of brown in color, and then his face is white. He's got these brown little eyes, and he loves to lick. He loves to lick my hands, loves to lick my fingers, probably from all the salt in my hands or something. I don't know. But these little guys love to eat worms, crickets, little creepy crawlies. In Africa, people who have gardens will actually welcome hedgehogs into their garden because they will protect their vegetables from insects. There's that little face. How can you not love that little tiny face there? So they will actually eat, they will welcome it into their gardens by providing with a home, maybe a little bit of water and stuff like that. And then if the hedgehogs stay in their garden, they'll eat the bugs that might eat the vegetables. Now we give little Bruce here a bath once a week. He gets a little warm bath. It's only about 1 inch or 2 deep, and he swims around in there, and that kind of cleans his quills from any kind of stuff. We actually have to use a toothbrush. To kind of scrub his quills so we can get in there into that area there. But anyways, yeah, he is very cute. Why does he pop like that? That's a great question. That's kind of a defense mechanism. So imagine if you're a lion or a hyena in Africa, if they go to put his mouth on him and he pops, it startles them. So, and he'll do that. And you know, he does that for a minute or two, but after a while, when I'm holding him, he starts to wake up, unfold, and then he walks around. But again, he's been in a very deep sleep for a little bit, so I just woke him up like that. But that popping is completely natural for them to do that.
We have two questions in the chat. What is his preferred temperature or climate? And then is he friends with Poppy?
Oh, well, him and Poppy live in the same building. We have a temperature controlled building where we keep a lot of our warm weathered animals, especially this time of year. But in the spring and the summer, we like to let them out, let them enjoy the sunshine in the summer. But they don't live in this, they live in the same building. But I think if they encountered each other, I don't know, one might run the other way. And what was the other question?
What is their preferred temperature or climate?
Oh, it's about 75 degrees or warmer. Hedgehogs can actually go into a hibernation if it gets too cold, which is not necessarily a good thing, because if they go into a hibernation, it's almost like they just stay asleep, and it's hard for them to come out of it. So they probably, you know, when it gets really, really cold, it can affect them. So we try to keep these guys in a temperature around 72, 75 degrees.
So we have two more questions. Is it possible to come across a wild porcupine or hedgehog in Texas?
No, they're not native to Texas. But of course, you might come across a porcupine, you know, and you could call that a Texas-sized hedgehog.
Very good. And also the other question is, do the hedgehog lose their quills throughout their life?
They do. They shed just like a dog does. So they'll lose all those quills over the course of the year. They just fall off and then they get new quills. So it's just modified hair. So occasionally we'll be holding him and he'll have a couple of quills on our hands. But it's just modified hair. So that's all it is. So they do lose their quills.
So just kind of like we lose our hair from time to time.
Yeah, exactly.
Strands here and there.
Yes, exactly, for sure. And that's what happens. So even when we bathe them, sometimes that helps too with the bath there. Sometimes the loose quills will come off and that helps them too. So, okay, you ready for another one? You guys ready? You're gonna love this one.
Absolutely.
We're gonna switch the camera view so you can see this one a little bit different. There. Everybody, this is Osa. She is a two-toed sloth. She is 7 years old. She's hanging upside down. She's got 2 claws on the front legs and 3 claws on the back legs, which she uses to hang upside down from trees, much like your coat hanger in your closet. She came to us from a rescue. We get a lot of sloths encounter tree loss in the rainforest. And so whenever cut down trees, a lot of times the sloths are in the trees sleeping. And so that's what happened with her. She got down, she was in a tree and they cut down her tree, but she was one of many that had to be rescued. And that's where we came across her. They have a very big pig nose. It looks like a little pig nose. They have an incredible sense of smell. They can hear very well. Again, their eyesight is not as keen as all their other senses because a nocturnal animal. So during the day, she's asleep. At night, as she comes out, she wakes up. There's no use for her eyesight at night because she doesn't need it. So she finds her food by smelling for it, and they eat leaves. So they're leaf eaters. And so she'll wake up for a little bit here and there and look for leaves, and then she'll eat a few leaves. And then after a few minutes of eating leaves, she'll fall back asleep and she'll rest because sloths, they're very slow, and they are the slowest mammal on the planet. Their hair is kind of blonde and brown in color. It's almost like we took her to the spa and had highlights put in her, but and so that's kind of what it looks like. Their hair is long on the back, so when they're hanging upside down, it just looks like her hair is hanging because it grows from her stomach. So they have a brown face. They actually have very human-like ears tucked away underneath that hair. And And so right now where she's getting fed sweet potato, she's getting fed grapes, carrots. They do like a variety. We give her nuts, egg whites, avocados from time to time as a treat. But in the wild, of course, they eat mostly leaves. We do give her romaine, lettuce, and some collard greens. They don't have their first 4 teeth. They're born without their first 4 teeth. They do have very sharp incisors and molars as well. They have 18 teeth total, and they're related to the anteater. They're related to the anteater there. And they only come down to go to the bathroom once a week from the trees. They don't ever have to touch the jungle floor. They could live in the trees for the rest of their lives. They get their water from the dew on the leaves or drinking upside down from a stream. They don't walk on the ground because of their sharp claws. Their claws are about 2.5 to 3 inches long. They don't have strength in their arms to hold their body weight up like a dog or a cat when they're walking, but she can crawl. And when they crawl, that's a lot of times when people encounter sloths in the wild when they're crawling from one place to the other. They can also swim. They're very good swimmers. In fact, they swim faster than they climb through the trees. So go ahead.
A moment ago, he was hanging upside down, just the full length of him.
Yeah.
All upside down. That was very, very funny to look at. And now he's kind of climbing around, just exploring where he's hanging. So that's really great. You're doing a great job of explaining what exactly he looks like in his face. And those little ears, like you mentioned, you just pull back that fur and they really just look like a person's ear.
Look like a little person's ear.
Yeah. We have a couple questions here. How do they protect themselves from prey if they're so slow?
Good question. Sloths are masters of disguise, so they will actually blend in very well. Moss and algae grows on their hair, which protects them. They look like a big giant ball of moss. They don't have a natural scent of their own. They don't have an odor, so they are like a sponge. So they absorb it. So if they could smell like a tree, they could smell like the moss and the algae, and because they move so very slow that it's hard to see them when they do move.
So their defense is camouflaged in several ways, not only the color, but that scent. That's very interesting. They can take on the scent of what they're near.
Exactly. And that's really the only, they can't.
I've never been there.
They can bite, but mostly their defense is to be hidden, to be just tucked away in a tree. So, yeah.
We also had 2 other questions. One, what is her lifespan, and do you need to trim her nails?
Yes. Okay. So they can live about 20 to 25 years under our care, but in the natural environment, it may be 18 to 20 because of predators, deforestation, and poachers and things like that. And as far as the, what was the other question? I'm sorry.
The lifespan, and do you have to trim their nails?
Oh yeah, their nails. So yes, we do trim her nails, the very tips of her nails. We have to have a half moon shape. They have to maintain a half moon shape, which allows them to be able to go around tree branches and things like that. But we cut just the very tips of them because they can get a little brittle and a little pointy and sharp. So we just simply cut her nails like you would a dog, dog clippers and stuff like that. And she doesn't care. And so we do that about every 3 months or so. Yeah. So a very interesting animal, and they are not endangered, but the rainforest where they live is endangered because they're cutting down so many trees at such an elevated rate that these sloths can't survive out there because they don't have a lot of trees to live on. They're planting a lot of palm trees for the palm oils, and they're taking over so much of that land that's what's hurting them because they can't survive on those trees. They can't climb up them. They don't get food from them. So that's another thing that's kind of sad when it comes to that.
Well, we're getting lots of comments in the chat about how cute all of these animals are. And people are really appreciating all the fun information that they're learning, like why it is that possums don't carry rabies. I always knew that they didn't, but I never knew why that was. So thank you for providing that piece of information.
Sure.
And we also have a question, are those nails or claws sharp?
Are they sharp? Yes.
Are they sharp?
Yes, they are. They are sharp. They can't. Yeah, they're sharp. And that's what happens in the wild. As they climb and as they grow, they'll kind of break on the tips, and then they'll maintain that sharpness because it does allow them to protect themselves that way as well. So yeah. Well, and do we have any other questions about?
How does our weather impact them? This person is wondering how they have adapted to our climate, especially when they are born in other climates in their natural environments.
That's a very good question. Well, really, we have to help that. We have to help with that environment. And the reason why is because they do like it warm. They do like it humid. And sometimes during the year we have that. We have warm and we have humid weather, but it can also be a little too hot for them out here. Because of they don't have that South American foliage that protects them from the sun. And it can also be too cold as well. So we have to provide an indoor-outdoor facility for them. But on certain nice days of the spring and the summer, we can put them out on some low-lying trees, and they climb through the trees, they eat the leaves, and they do fine. But at night we put them away because we also worry about the great horned owl. The great horned owl is a big predator, and so we wouldn't want them to get hurt by those guys. But so we provide them with most of that environment that they feel comfortable in.
So just like for ourselves, we have heating and air conditioning in our home. In the habitats where you keep them, you'll have a heat lamp when it's needed or air conditioning when it's needed to provide that comfort level for them.
Exactly.
Very good.
Well, we've got one more animal that we think would be fitting to end with. First of all, thank you, Owl Radio, for putting on the expo. And when I say Owl Radio, we just happen to have one. Look at this.
Look at that guy.
This one's
so
looking
cute
right now, but I'm going to turn her around here. Let's see if I can get her to look at you guys. You see how she turned her head? This is Athena. And Athena is an eastern screech owl. They are considered one of the smallest owls in the world. They live here in North America. She weighs the same as a tennis ball. She's very little. She's about 5 to 6 inches tall. And she is kind of the color of oak trees. She's got gray, black, and some white markings, which allow her to blend into the oak trees here in this part of the country. You have your western screech owls and you have your eastern screech owls. And the western screech owls are a little bit more of a brown in color, where Athena here, she's more of a gray in color. Now, Athena came to us from a rescue from Corpus Christi, Texas, where there was somebody who found her in their backyard. And when they found her, they realized that she had injured her right eye. So upon taking her to the veterinarian, when they took her to the veterinarian, the veterinarian discovered that her right eye was practically gone. So he had to surgically remove her right eye because it was infected and there was no way she could see out of it anymore. So in order to protect her, they had to surgically remove her eye and then close where the eye was. Now she's a very healthy little owl. She still sees very well with one good eye. She still sees very well. She can still fly. The only reason why we have her and she's not released into the wild is because she cannot see predators coming from the right side. And so in order to protect her life, U.S. Fish and Wildlife asked us to keep her at our facility. So now she lives with us and she'll be with us for the rest of her life. They live about 5 to 7 years in the wild. And but under our care, she'll probably live about 20 years or so. Their prey are insects. So these birds love to eat bugs. They love creepy crawlies and crickets and cockroaches. That's their main food. We do give her little pieces of meat. We do give her little pieces on occasion here and there. And I don't know if you, she's kind of keeps looking at me. She keeps looking at me a little bit. I'm trying to get her to look at the camera a little bit more.
So we are at time, and I do have just a couple questions. A short question is, how long are her legs?
Oh, her legs, when she's stretched out, they're about 2 inches. So she's all curled up right now, but when she stands up, they're about 2 inches. So she's got some long legs.
And this is a little bit longer of a question to be longer of an answer, I should say, to the question. Can they be trained to communicate with us, any of the animals that you have? And but Robert and I were trainers at SeaWorld together, so I know he has an answer for this.
Yeah, I mean, yes, you can communicate with animals. You know, you just have to learn their language. You know, you work with them on a day-to-day basis. They learn to acknowledge you, to recognize you. You know, Athena knows me when I go into her flight and it's time to feed her. She'll fly to my glove. And so that's just part of how we talk to each other, communicate with. Yes, all these animals have a certain way of letting us know, you know, what they want and who they are.
Yeah, it's a different way of communication. It's definitely not verbal, but you can, when you watch their behaviors on a daily basis, you very much able to know certain things, what they enjoy, what they're wanting to stay away from, things of that nature. So yes, there's absolutely a good amount of communication that can go on. It's just very different.
Yes.
Someone said, thank you, Zoomagination, for sharing your beautiful friends.